Hello, everybody. It's me, Pacific, back for some more fun. My son told me to type in Facebook parenting, and I watched the video by the gentleman who had a daughter who thought it was cool to diss her folks on Facebook. So this is specific, and you know I got to weigh in on controversy, so I'm going to weigh in on this one, and I've got a lot to say. First of all, kudos to the dad who did Facebook parenting and blew a hole in the laptop. I give you a total thumbs up for that. That was well in order, and I appreciate you. You have what, 35 million viewers that saw that. So she wants to go public on Facebook. You upped the ante and went on YouTube. I think that was perfect justice. I want to talk about teenagers. I want to talk a lot about teenagers because I know what I'm talking about. First of all, this does not apply to all American teenagers. There are some great quality female and male students out there that are teens, and some of them are achievers, get good grades, have jobs, respect their parents, show manners, and are kind. And to those, I salute you kids for doing a good job. That's what makes America a great country. But I ran a troubled respite home in Akron, Ohio for 6 months. I have my own son, and I realized that he's not 18 yet, and he could turn the corner either direction. But I learned something a long time ago. I learned a lot by watching people. All my jobs have been public. I've lived all over the United States, and I've lived 13 months in China, and I've been to the Philippines, Macau, Canada, and Mexico, and I've learned a lot about people. I also drove school buses. Spokane, Washington, Denver, Colorado, Duluth, Minnesota, Hibbing, Minnesota, and Kettle Falls, Washington. Total of 10 years of combined school bus and passenger transit driving as well as church buses. So I got to know teenagers real well. I do not consider myself the Dr. Phil on the subject, but observation and personal experience has a lot of weight to it. I want to talk about today's teens in America, and I want to make some observations both about the parents of teens and the teens themselves. Now, I don't know the gentleman personally that made the Facebook parenting video, but based on what I heard him say, his requirements for chores for his daughter, they seem to be more than reasonable. They seem to be right there. I thought, man, I wish I'd have had him as a father. He was pretty lenient on that girl. Gave her a pretty simple list of chores, and the girl decided to be a smart-mouthed little snit on her Facebook. Good for you, Dad. I think you did the right thing. And I think with today's world of teens today, I think the punishment fits the crime. In American culture, we have a lot of teenagers that seem to think the world revolves around them. Let's talk about the females first. After all, ladies first. Most teenage girls I know are so narcissistic, self-centered, and got the princess syndrome, and they think the whole world revolves around them, texting, and Facebook. I find them to be flaky, find them to lack substance, find them to lack manners, find them to lack respect for anybody other than themselves. I find most teenage women dress like little sluts and whores, and I'm going to use strong words here because we're not dealing with today's children like we were in the 1950s. Most kids today are hardened, jaded, callous, and completely off the wall with some of the things they're doing. I'm 46 years old. I was a complete squirrel in the classroom. I was in detention. I got swatted by the principal in California public schools where they used to allow corporal punishment. And you want to know who I respect today, kids? The teachers that discipline me. Not the ones that let us do whatever we wanted, but the ones that discipline me. And I went on to become a school bus driver. So that being said, I learned a lot. And because I learned a lot, I can make some observations based on fact. And one of the things that I noticed over the years, excuse the dog, one of the things I noticed over the years is a lot of teenagers think the world owes them a living. They can sit at home and mom buys them cell phones, cars, everything, easy come, easy go, and a lot of teens have an attitude. Let's go to parents for a minute. Driving a school bus, I saw some interesting things out there. I watched a lot of people out there on as driving minivan moms and stuff would pull up in school zones. It says buses only, no parking. Moms would park there, block the way, bus driver tap the horn, and the quality parents would flip us off or yell the FU word out the window. So when we talk about parenting in response to this Facebook parenting case on YouTube, I want to say something. A lot of parents in America don't know how to set a very good example for their kids. I see it all day long when I'm driving down the road and I see adults older than me driving like morons. No turn signals, speeding, getting fuzz busters and radar detection equipment in their car, and they're driving their kids around. Minivan moms flipping off school bus drivers for parking illegally in a school bus parking zone only. I watch parents tell their kids that they can't watch these movies because they're for adults only. Really, only adults can watch violence, nudity, cussing, and profanity? I thought the parents were supposed to set an example. But I've noticed something today. A lot of parents will let their kids watch this stuff or they don't care. Let's talk about Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. One or both of those kids had a padlock on their door, were storing ammunition, guns, and bullets, and they did not allow their parents to come in their own room. Now, there's something wrong with that. If I'm the owner of a house and my son's got a lock on his doors, I'm taking the lock off. That's my house. I'm the adult. You're the child, and nobody's going to be storing ammunition. If my son ever did that, I'd call the police and say, why don't you come on over here and let's have a little chat. And then you can chat with my son, and then you can confiscate all this stuff. You see, we need accountability today. Kids need accountability. And I think of my grandpa he's now deceased. He was in World War II in the Merchant Marine, and he was on the tail end of the famine or the Great Depression. And people lived different back then. You didn't see teenagers smarting off and lipping off their parents. They got spanked back then. They got disciplined, and mom and dad didn't put up with it. Unfortunately, things have changed. Now teens think they got rights, and they're ready to call 911 if their parents lays a hand on them. Well, I'll tell you what. As a school bus driver, I've seen it all. I was always nice to my students. I never treated them like children. I treated senior high and junior high as adults. I tried. Didn't always work. With the quality kids, it did. Kids that were in band, kids that did well in their academia, those kids were great. But a lot of kids were squirrels, and some kids, this is normal. Kids are going to have normal kids behavior. But one of the things I noticed is even though I was nice, some kids just don't know how to be polite, don't know how to use manners. I drove a school bus route for 1 year in Hibbing, Minnesota, and all those high school students, never once, when I said good morning every day, when I waited for them when they were running late out of their house, never did I hear thank you, hello, anything. I couldn't believe the lack of manners in most of today's kids. They're cocky, they're arrogant, they mouth off to their parents buy them a new car, they wrap it around a phone pole and go 100 miles an hour, cutting everybody off. I was given a $700 four-door boat, and I learned how to drive it the proper way, and my friends laughed at the car I had, but they all wanted a ride home. So I used to say, well, if you want to ride home, why are you making fun of my car? Now, it was given to me, but it was a $700 car. It wasn't a $35,000 whatever. Let's talk about teenage boys. I had a student on my Spokane school bus route last year, junior high kid. I don't know what the story was with his father from another country, but basically his mother was raising him and his mother had a handful. I was polite to this kid every day. He played the race card. Every time I had to tell him, hey, you need to sit down, sir, that's the state laws, he would mouth off and question everything. How come you're telling me this? I tell everybody that. You're not singled out. He left me 2 days before school got out, walking off my bus saying, F you. And many of the students clapped when he did it. Ironically, my references are outstanding. My driving record is outstanding. No tickets, no accidents. The bus companies have backed me up. School districts have backed me up. And that was the first time in all my years of bus driving that I had a kid so blatantly disrespectful in all my life. One of my supervisors went out to talk to this kid because he was a constant problem and said, what is your problem? And named his name. He says, well, I have mommy issues. This kid was trying to be the wannabe dad in a family, but he didn't have the maturity to do it. The funny thing was, is the girls that were smoking pot and doing drugs and getting F's in school thought he was cool and wanted to go out with him and make love to him and all this. And I looked at these guys and I thought, do they really think they're cool stuff? Today's teens are doing things adults were doing, having sex, doing drugs, all that. Pretty sad, pretty scary. When I was in school, the druggies and the beer drinkers were in the minority. The smokers were in the minority. Now it seems that they're in the majority. And I wanted to comment on this Facebook parenting because I look at a lot of parents, especially in middle-class culture today, They're not setting an example. They're teaching their children that it's okay to obsess over materialism and buy $65,000 SUVs. We've got mother and father now working both to make money to buy their own selfish little toys and boats and cabins and fun while they throw their kids into daycare. So, in all fairness to a lot of teenagers, a lot of them aren't getting the love they need. They're not getting the modeling and the good example they need. When dad's speeding in the car and breaking the laws and then cussing at everybody that gets in his way because he's driving like an idiot, not John Q. Public, what is his son and daughter seeing? He's simply passing the baton of irresponsible behavior to these children, who in turn drive like morons. I could go on and on. Why would any parent let their children or teenage children watch nudity, violence? Why would any parent allow their children to go into the room for 8 hours a day and play violent video games, car theft, San Andreas, and stuff like that? Why would they do that? That doesn't make sense. Why would most American parents use the television as a babysitter for their kids? No wonder the kids are all screwed up. They're getting raised by a TV. You know, it used to be that families really did things together. Now they throw them in so many sports and piano lessons and activities, the kid's running from one end to the other and doesn't get to be a kid anymore. Whatever happened to families actually doing stuff together? Now, I know there's exceptions to the rule, but I wanted to say something about a lot of American teens today. They're spoiled, rotten little brats. They're disrespecting, and they're not kind, and they don't have their manners, and they don't know the value of hard work. They don't know the value of the dollar and earning it and having pride. I saw that driving a school bus. I treated those kids good. I let them do things like eat on the bus, and some respected that. They'd pick up anything they spilled on the floor and picked it up, and I had some good routes over the years. But then I had a lot where I just had to say, well, no more eating. You guys can't follow the rules. And it's funny. A lot of teenagers think they know everything and give them 20, 30 years, and then they come back to some of us adults and say, you know what, you were right. I applaud the guy for Facebook parenting for shooting his daughter's laptop with a pistol. She had no right to put that stuff on Facebook about her mother and father like that, especially when I heard his explanation of how kind they were to her. Uploaded all that software and updated her computer and treated her like gold. Too many girls in the teenage mind in American culture have the princess syndrome, think that everything's owed them. They think they're cute and they think they're little goddesses while dressing like sluts and whores, and then they get mad when somebody who's 50 years old is looking at them with lust in his eyes. That's another thing. I don't understand how come a lot of American women allow their daughters to go out of the house dressed like that. Now we have a lot of American parents acting like their teenage daughters and want to hang out with their teenage girlfriends. Wow, we've arrived. I could go on, but my years as a school bus driver, I've seen a lot. I love it when the kid's bouncing off the walls, high school student, cussing, yelling, screaming, standing up when he's not supposed to, flying over the seats, punching other students. You go to ride him up, and the parent says, why is this bus driver riding up my student? He's a good kid. Would you like to see the camera, honey? Let me show you the video. Usually about then, the parents back up and go, oh my gosh, I didn't know he was doing all this. You didn't? How involved are you in the kid's life? Now we have school districts not backing up the bus drivers today because why? If the student parents get offended because the principal has to question the student's behavior, the parent pulls the kid out of school and they lose the tax dollar support for that head. So now we're bending over backwards to accommodate what I would call bad behavior. Consequences are a thing of the past, and we can thank Mr. Benjamin Spock for telling everybody spanking was wrong. I'm wondering if he's recanted any of that since then. Spanking never hurt anybody. Might have busted their pride a little bit. I'm not advocating abuse, but when we got rid of spanking, that's when problems existed. I remember when the school bus driver could pull over, pick us up out of the seat, slam us against the wall, and say, you're going to continue to mess around, and we would gulp and go, no. I love kids. I love the youth and energy. I love their laughter. I love teens. I don't hate them. But we do have a problem here. And a lot of it stems from a couple of different factors. I blame the media. I blame our rock and roll generation and the whole, we won't mention names. God forbid I get a lawsuit from some diva out there who's making too much money anyway, showing her cleavage and bouncing around on stage and thinking, haha, I'm cool. Okay, whatever. I know I'm not cool. So if you guys all want to say you look like a dork and got thick glasses, I'm not a dork, but you're right. I got Coke bottles. But here's the deal. I was a squirrel in school. But you know what? Schools disciplined me. The principal swatted me. The teachers gave me detention. You know what? I respected the teachers that stood up. I look back and I respect them because they had control. I don't respect permission slip people. I don't like it when I go into a store and I see some woman with 3 kids running around the store grabbing toys, screaming like brats. I want this. Mom says no, and they create a tantrum and a meltdown. Uh-uh. I remember one day my son and I walked into a store and kid was just having a meltdown. His mom told him no, and I looked at my son and said, do you see that? My son smiles. He says, yeah, he's having a meltdown over there. I said, you know what would happen if you'd had ever done that to me? He says, you would have busted me, Dad. My son respects me. And you know what? He's 12 years old, and you know what he told me? I was over in China for some time. I got back, and he says, I know you've been away for a while. But he says, I love you, and I know you love me, and I want to thank you for disciplining me. You know, I about cried. I about fell out of my pickup truck when he said that. I joked, and I said, what, do you want $1 million? He said, you want something from me? No, Dad. I mean that. I see the value of discipline. My son respects me, and he respects authority, and he respects others. That route in Hibbing, Minnesota was interesting. I thought the kids were socially retarded up there. I saw a lot of that. I went over to another route because a driver was let go, and that route proved to be much better. But these kids were out in the country, middle class homes, parents were well to do. Not one of them had the decency to be polite. They just were rude. I couldn't understand it. Couldn't say hello, couldn't say thank you. And then when you had to tell them, sorry, your boyfriend can't ride on the bus because we're only authorized to pick up students that are allowed to ride the bus, and the girl gets mad and smarts off to you, and it's like, hey, girls, boys, I don't owe you nothing. All I'm supposed to do is my job get you to and from school. You know, play footsie with your boyfriend, then take his car home or have somebody else pick you up. Too much entitlement mentality. When I was a teenager, let me tell you what I was doing, and I hate to use this I walked uphill both ways to school thing, but it's true. I lived in Mammoth Lakes, California. The town was at 8,000 feet, so we had long winters, and we didn't use electrical heat. We used fireplaces. So when I was a kid, I went with my dad every weekend in the summer and got 8 cords of wood. My dad would cut the lengths, cut the branches off. I dragged the 8-foot lengths back to the truck. I had to stack and split 8 to 10 cords of wood. Then in the wintertime, we got 20 to 40 feet of snowfall in this town that I lived in the year, in the winter. I shoveled the path to the driveway, 3 automobiles out, the truck, the camper, the roof of the camper, got on the steep pitch of the roof, shoveled that off. This I was all doing at 15, 16 years old. And you know what? I didn't get paid for all that. I did that because it was expected of me. Sometimes I got allowance money, sometimes I did not. And you know, when I got done with all that, I went up the street and shoveled people's driveways. Then on the weekends, I worked at Warming Hut too, bussing tables as a teenager. I learned the value of work. And then on the way home from school, I'd stop at my uncle's sporting goods store, shovel off the front walkway, put the skis and the boots and the poles away, and I got free rentals on the weekend when I wanted to go skiing on my day off and stuff like that. I'm still a hard worker. I can still run circles around most teens today, physically, and I'm 46 years old. That work was hard work. And for a small guy like me, all muscle, and I've got a metabolism and an energy level that still doesn't quit. I don't respect the teens wearing their pants, their cargo pants down with their butt crack hanging out, the baseball hat on backwards. You're punks. And there's no other word for it. If you want respect, you have to give it, kids. And when you don't give it, don't expect us as society to look at you favorably. When you get on Facebook and you mouth off about good parents, I don't respect it. You shouldn't even be doing that even if they weren't good parents. My gosh. Facebook? And what's with all this texting? I watch the kids on my bus text each other on the school bus. Can't talk to each other, they text. And the stuff they're texting, horrible. Sending nude pictures, all this stuff. I got a problem with our culture today. It's really gone down the toilet. When kids are obsessed with video games, when girls are obsessed with rock stars and divas and 55,000 trips to the mall and emptying out mom and dad's pocketbook and then smarting off to everybody. I got a problem with that. Hey, come here. Never mind the dog. He wants to be on camera here, but I don't know if he's going to do it. Here, let me see. Come here, pup. Come here. Come here. Here, you guys want to see the doggy? Come here. You want to be on video? Come here. Come on. Hi, pup. Say hi. There you go. That's the dog. So those are my thoughts on the matter. Shh. And I applaud the dad on Facebook parenting. Good job. 35 million views. I'm impressed. I doubt I'll get that many, but that's not what I'm after. I wanted to comment because it is a controversial subject, and I'm sure that out of 35 million people, a lot of them were teens. And then I saw the people making fun of and putting the guy down for doing it, like the flaky woman that said, "Oh, I downloaded all these porn pics on your site." Stupid. I'll tell you what, some of these girls need to have a dose of reality. And what I would advocate these parents do is tell your daughter, okay, I'm not buying you food this week. You'll have to pay for that. And you got to pay me rent for living in my house. And then you got to pay, let's see, water, trash, sewer, utility, electrical, heating, air conditioning, internet, the Comcast. You know, maybe if these teens realized how much mom and dad have to pay for all this stuff, they might appreciate the value of it while they're sitting in their room smarting off about everybody. And maybe the kids that can't even say hello and be polite to the bus driver every day, maybe I ought to say, you know what? You're not nice. You can't ride. You can't even be nice. I don't owe you this. I'm paid to drive the bus. I don't owe you this. That's a right of the state and the federal government to provide you with transportation. You know, when I was in Hong Kong, I got off the tram, I got off the bus, and I say thank you to the driver. I did it in America. I did it on the Duluth Transit Authority, the RTD in Denver. I always say thank you. You drove me, you're safe, you're doing your job. Why aren't kids using manners? How come when relatives come over, the kids won't even say, "Hi, Grandma, how are you?" Again, this is the disclaimer. Not all kids are this way, but a lot are. Until parents start living an example and teaching their kids values. And let me add something else. I was in Virginia, Minnesota, and there was a handicapped student in a wheelchair being pushed into the store, and a mother gets out of her car with her walking student and says, "Oh, look, come here. I want to show you what a retarded person looks like." This is a parent setting a great example for her daughter. Nice job, Mom. I found that when I drove special ed and special needs lift buses with wheelchair people, autistic people, cerebral palsy, those people were nicer to me than the so-called normal teenagers that were sitting in the back of the bus going and doing that all the time. Amazing. I hate the word retarded. I'm starting to wonder if the retarded symbol or the retarded word needs to be used for those that consider themselves normal, that act like idiots and stupid and can't use manners, instead of using the word retarded for somebody who has some limitations. Let me say it again. I had more pleases, thank yous, and how are you today from the special needs, limited, handicapped people. They were nicer to me, said thank you for the ride, and talked and engaged with me more than the so-called normal kids. Interesting. That's my thought on it. I could be long-winded. I've got a lot to say, but I've had a lot of experience with teens, and I met some great ones. I had students sit up in front of the bus because they wanted to talk to the driver, talk about their studies, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their sports, and they were good kids. And that's a testimony of good parents. But so many of these other kids, their parents are junk, and they're just not doing a good job. And the kids, you can even have good parents, and the kids can still turn out bad. Kids, we don't owe you nothing. I hate to say that. The day's going to come when you're going to be out there working and try to do the stuff that you're doing now at a job. See how long you keep your employment. When you got to go pay your rent to your landlord and you don't have the money because you lost a job, see if he's going to give you a free ride, dude, because he ain't. When you Comcast, when your internet shut down, when you can't afford to buy the $50 San Andreas car theft auto, then maybe you'll wake up. Facebook parenting. It's a great idea. I'd like to see more of it. This is Pacific signing off, and have a great day. Bye-bye.